you all have been enjoying your stories and what you came up with them and how you want to show up in your own story for right now. And I want to share with you something I have been actually wanting to share for a while, but other things kept popping up with other things I had to share to make videos. So, considering yesterday I told a story, well, talking about heroes. Now I want to talk about villain. How do you villain in your story? It's like, hmm. Now, I think villains are so interesting and cool because, like maybe the common definition we have as a villain is someone who's bad and, they're going against the right order of things and like they're causing mischief and chaos. As my cat is being a little mischievous right now, just climbing on different things right now. Please don't fall. Please don't fall. I'm gonna let her be, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on her over here. So don't mind me if I keep looking over there. But yeah, so why do we like villains so much? Because I feel like villains really help move the story along, and it's just like, especially as we have progressed with our storytelling, we flesh out more the story of the villains, like why the villains do what they're doing, and I think it's great because, considering like she has zoomies. um, considering villains, they're human. And I think we often forget that because, in our modern day storytelling, we give them character, we give them backstory. Sometimes they have more story than the hero themselves. It's like, why have they turned to this life of crime or doing all this anarchy and stuff like that? And when like a story is really told well, I know from my personal experience, it's like you can really see the villain's point of view. It's just like, yeah, I can easily tell. Like, you're kind of rooting for the villain a little bit because it's like they've been so pushed beyond the edge, and it's just like, I don't know what else to do. Let's just go with some anarchy. And villains aren't necessarily a bad thing. And if you go to like storytelling and different things, like not even everyone wants to call certain characters villains per se. They're like, oh, they are anti-heroes. And isn't that interesting where it's just like you have a hero, you have a villain, and then you have a few degrees kind of in the middle. You kind of have like the anti-heroes where they're kind of more on the villainous side, but then she has a lot of zoomies to Jill. I'm keeping this in the video because it's hilarious. Anyway, yeah, so you have anti-heroes which are, maybe on the spectrum kind of more to the middle, kind of a little bit towards villainous side because it's like they'll kind of do the right thing, but they're still serving their own interests. And I can't think of the term for like, yeah, a bit like a mediocre bad hero. I don't know. I don't know what that term would be. And then you kind of have people just in the middle, like we're neutral, we're not getting involved, we're just watching. And so, when you look at, villains and these anti-heroes, and they're just so full of different depths that we often don't think about. And I think we also like them because they're often shadow parts of ourselves, because we have all these hidden stories and hurts that we often don't express. So, we also like villains. She's very zoomy. I'm gonna close the door so she's not as zoomy in the room. Okay. Okay, just getting a little. She's cute, but it's a little too distracting while making the videos. So I think one of the reasons, like, another reason we like villains is because they tend to be charismatic. They know exactly what they want, and they're not afraid to go out and get it. And and that's great. Sometimes you just need to be unapologetic for what you want. And now what? And some people say, well, is this really the right way to do it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But when you look at storytelling, if they didn't take that villainous, maybe negative way of doing things, the hero couldn't come along to save the day or help fix what's going on, because oftentimes the villains will show what is wrong with society, what's wrong with everything. And sometimes, yeah, they are self serving. You have various different degrees of villainy. And it's just like, who's the villain in your story? Often than not, most people, I'm going to say probably 99% of the people would never list themselves as the villain of their own stories. And I find that very interesting because, people know we've learned to have negative self-talk about ourselves. Like if we're trying to hit the gym, we're trying to reasons not to hit the gym, we're not good enough and stuff like that. Like, isn't that a villain in a sense? Like those thoughts that you're having to yourself, or why you're not good enough, why you can't do this, or why this person doesn't like you and stuff like that. And it's just like, who why? And it's just like these thoughts keep persisting. And then it's like, are these negative thoughts, these villainous thoughts, are they going to keep wearing you down? Or are you going to do something to address them? Isn't that interesting? I say that a lot. Isn't that interesting a lot? But yeah, I just want you to take that time to really see, like, how do you villain in your story? Are you being a good villain or a bad villain? Maybe you're more of an anti-hero type of thing. Because, when we think about it, like when I think of like a lot of comics and, a lot of like Batman, for example, there have been lots of renditions and versions of Batman, obviously, some more favorable than others. I'm not a expert on this subject. I know other people still are, but many artists and directors take different views of it based on based on the movies, based on the video games, based on the comics, and things like that. And it's interesting how you have the same archetypical characters in the series. Batman, you got Robin, you got Joker, Riddler, Penguin, a whole bunch of other ones. It's interesting how they take their take of the villains and the heroes, like how they flesh them out. How real do they make them? And I also feel like if you're like a storyteller, especially, with comics and story and movies and stuff like that, it's a part of you that's coming out on that paper, on the film. And I just, it's can be cathartic in a sense, just being able to get that out, because, we're not necessarily going to be doing everything we're writing up. We're not going to be a real villain in real life and go on like bank heists and stuff like that. But when we really think about what the villain represents, I think it's just a part of ourselves that feels hurt and unheard and unwanted. And it's doing everything it can to claw its way out to get your attention. Now, doesn't that sound something familiar? Oftentimes, I refer to this as shadow work and stuff like that. You may have different definitions of that, but it's just about being able to transmute the dark into light. It's not like we are completely ignoring the darkness. It's just like we have to look at it, because if we keep running from it, it's going to keep chasing us. So I'm just going to invite you. How do you villain today? Are you a villain with your self-talk? Are you being a villain in someone else's story? Or maybe you're just kind of watching and seeing like, how can I be? How can I make impact in this kind of way? Because, sometimes there are some days we could take the high road, and sometimes there are days we don't take the high road. It's one of the reasons I kind of like watching some of the videos like, Am I the Asshole? Because sometimes we don't want to take the high road, because sometimes we take the low road, even if you even want to consider that the low road, because sometimes when you take that different, sometimes you can't always kill someone with kindness in that sense, because sometimes you could be as loving and supportive as you can with a person, and there's some people that will just take advantage of that. I'm sure all of you either know someone or seen a character play that. And sometimes you need that tough love. Sometimes they will not get it until you set boundaries. That, wow. Wow. That's so cool. Like, the villain is all about boundaries. I'm like mind blown right now. I'm just like, wow, the villain is all about boundaries, because like they feel their boundaries have been invaded, so they go off. Or maybe it's just like, you need to stay within boundaries. Like, we need to understand the consent of things, and if you don't, you're gonna reap the consequences of that. Wow. Ooh. I'm so glad that I'm doing these YouTubes, because that new thought of like boundaries, that would not have came to me unless I was like making this video, or maybe it would have came to me later down the line. But wow. Okay, I'm gonna end it there because that's such a high note for me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.